And here's a song. This is called Beautiful Child of the World. You come from the time before time, before the universe was born, when there was a seed that it was inside, and then it all came crashing forth. You come from the great fire of stars. They made the atoms in your bones. They put a light inside of your heart. They put a brightness in your soul. You come from a stone's uncanny desire, beautiful yearning of the earth, beautiful longing to be alive, beautiful child of the world. You come from a vast family tree. You come from the first life to appear. You come from the land. You come from the sea. You come from 1,000,000,000 years. You come from a fierce warrior's song, a noble hunter's eyes. You come from love, tender and strong, compassionate and kind. You come from all the hopes and dreams that made your ancestors' hearts stir. Their beautiful passions and beautiful schemes, beautiful child of the world. You come from laughter and from tears, beautiful unexpected turns, from the sliver of chance that brought you here, beautiful child of the world. And you belong as much as the moon, as much as the morning unfurled, as much as the robin's beautiful tune, beautiful child of the world. And all of the 1,000 beautiful parts of the story of your birth are singing together the song that you are, beautiful child of the world. Okay. I once was at a UU coming of age service where the 9th grade boys and girls who were in this program were making statements about what they believe. One of the quotes was something like, "As far as what the truth is about different religions, I guess I just don't know." And not knowing seems to be what UUism is all about. I thought a lot about this. We Unitarian Universalists are indeed famous for not being quite sure what we believe. There are jokes you may have heard about what happens when you cross a Jehovah's Witness with a UU. And the answer is that you get a person who goes around knocking on doors for no apparent reason. I've puzzled a lot about what exactly it is that UUism represents. When I first discovered it, it seemed so different from the Roman Catholicism that I grew up with. It contained no central mythology, no creed or statement of belief in any kind of supernatural order. It offered no God. It guaranteed no afterlife. I wondered, was this even a religion? And what was holding it together? I would like to suggest that perhaps what Unitarian Universalism is all about lies not so much in what we don't know, but rather in what we do know. Let me explain what I mean. Throughout our history, UUs have always had a sort of cranky empiricism. There is another joke about us that we often read ahead in the hymnal so we can determine whether or not we can, in good conscience, sing the lyrics that are coming up. We are very serious about the truth of things. And here's something most of us seem to agree on. If something can't be shown to be true based on good evidence, then we shouldn't try to build a religion on it. So, if we can't have all the beliefs and promises that many religions have, then what is left for us? Well, what we do know is what is left. And this is, I think, one of the defining traits of this movement. We build on what we know to be true, not on what we don't. Some religions favor beliefs over and even against empirical knowledge, but not UUism. It seems to me that what we know comes first, and everything follows from that. And if whatever follows, whatever beliefs or rituals or spiritual practices we embrace, must not contradict common knowledge, but rather flow out of it and hearken back to it. Does this sound like a religion without mysticism and inspiration, without the transcendent experiences that so many of us hope for in a religious practice? I would like to suggest just the opposite, that what we now know to be true about the world is so vast and mysterious in its scope, from the subtle intricacies and inner workings of a living cell to the unimaginable immensity and age of the universe, that every effort we make to learn about it can only lead to a sense of reverence, awe, and wonder. So, what do we know? Well, we certainly can't cover it all here. But one important thing that we know is we are alive. Perhaps this is our best good news. We are alive and awake in the universe, and this, we know, is an astonishing thing. We also know that we are blood relatives with every other living thing on earth. Every plant, animal, bacterium, and fungus, that every living thing descended from the same microscopic organisms that were alive on earth nearly 4,000 million years ago. We didn't always know this, and most of our religions were created long before we discovered it. And even though this truth is incredibly profound, with all sorts of implications about who and what we are, still many of our faith traditions do not even include it in their understanding of the world, nor acknowledge or celebrate it. It seems that our spiritual lives haven't yet caught up with the amazing things we have discovered. We also know that evolution is the process by which all of life is related. And yet some of our religions today deny evolution altogether, even though there is as much evidence for evolution as there is for the theory of gravity. To deny evidence is a curious and sometimes troubling capacity that we humans have. Look at global warming, for example. Although it enjoys the weight of scientific consensus, still many of us simply choose not to believe it. Ignoring facts like this creates a very distorted and dangerous map by which to navigate our future. And it points to the need for religion that starts first and foremost with what we can say is true to the best of our knowledge. What else do we know? We know that each one of us is a community of trillions of living organisms, many of whom still resemble their ancient ancestors. These cells, which are cooperating in complicated ways to make you and me. And we are learning that even though evolution has given us the drive to compete, it has also perhaps even more powerfully given us the desire to cooperate and nurture and love and live in community with others. We are learning that human beings love not in spite of our genetic inheritance, but because of it. Nature itself has taught us to love and to practice empathy. Why? Because we need each other to live and to thrive. What else do we know? We know that we are on a planet. This seems like an obvious fact, but we didn't always know this, and most of our religions were created long before we discovered it. Our whole worldview as humans was based on the idea that we were at the center of everything and that the sky and all of creation was turning around us. But one of the early gifts that science gave us was the news that we are doing the turning. Spinning around our axis, hurtling around our sun, and soaring even faster around the center of our galaxy. We also now know that our galaxy isn't the only galaxy, that there are hundreds of billions of them, and they are all moving and expanding apart from one another. Indeed, we know that everything is in motion, from the very smallest particle in the atoms of our bodies to the immense universe itself. We know that everything is changing as well, not static and eternal as the old model suggested. Even Einstein did not believe this at first, didn't want to believe this. We know that the universe actually had a beginning. It began 13.8 thousand million years ago as a speck smaller than an atom into which all of us were squished in our primordial form, and which at some point exploded and expanded with unimaginable force and speed. We know that the atoms that we are made of were mostly made in the furnace of stars. We are made out of star stuff. We didn't always know this astonishing truth, and most of our religions still don't regard it as central to their beliefs or practices. Perhaps we feel that it's beside the point. But I don't think it is. I think it is I think of it as the sacred story of our lives. We know that the earth itself is 4,500 million years old, that people descended from primates in Africa, and that we modern humans have been here for perhaps 100,000 years, which is really just an eye blink in the vast history of our planet. We know that we most likely wouldn't be here if an asteroid hadn't struck the Earth and caused the dinosaurs to become extinct. Indeed, we know that our existence is dependent on all that has preceded us, all that has happened leading up to now, and that our lives are brief events in the immense scope of things. One difficult thing we know is that life needs death in order to make itself anew, which does not bode well for our prospects for personal immortality. But it does mean that we have the opportunity to be alive at all, because without death, none of us would be here. We know that we are not really better than anything else in creation, but it is possible to see that we have a special role, a role of discovering and giving names to things, of piecing together the story of creation and celebrating it. We can say that the universe becomes awake and aware of itself through us. We have the role of loving each other, trying to make life fair and equitable for all, and caring for our earth. And now, with our capacity to destroy, we have the planet itself in our hands, and so have the very important role of striving to protect and preserve its life systems. And here is a great truth that we know, which is expressed in all the other things we have learned. We are profoundly interconnected. We are indeed one with each other and with everything around us, in ways that are very important, but not always very apparent. And here, I think, is where religion comes in. Religions have always told a particular story about the world and what it means to be human. Who and what are we? How should we live? And what does life mean? And whatever that sacred central story is, it is committed to heart by those who follow that faith, and told and retold, studied and discussed endlessly, and revisited every Saturday or Sunday morning. Why? Because it is of utmost importance. And it's not something you just tend to know intuitively. If you grow up Christian or Muslim, you don't automatically know the story of Jesus or Muhammad. You must learn it and then, ideally, study it the rest of your life in order to live more fully out of it. And so it is with the great truths that we now know. The fact that we are on a planet is not an intuitive thing. I think that's why it took us so long to figure it out. We don't feel it moving, and so we have to remind ourselves of this if we are to live more deeply out of it. We must use our imaginations to grasp what is actually real. It is the same with many of the other aspects of our existence. We must learn about evolution and the interconnectedness of life and deep time and the forces that brought us here, and then try to live out of those ideas and let them sink more deeply into us by way of ritual, meditation, poetry, metaphor, discussion, and support in our communities. This is the way we create a good and accurate map of reality by which to navigate the future and make the right choices so that life will flourish. When I grew up, every year at Easter time, my Catholic family attended the most important liturgy of the whole year, the Easter Vigil. It happened at midnight, and the whole church at one point became completely dark. This is big stuff for a kid in the pews. Sitting in a full church at midnight in silence with the lights out. Then the Paschal fire, the light of Christ, was dramatically lit at the back of the church, and its light slowly grew as the flame was passed candle to candle to each person until the whole sanctuary glowed. I'll never forget that magical feeling, that great light appearing in the darkness and then spreading to each one of us so that each of us were a part of it. The over 2-hour liturgy featured readings and songs from our whole history, going back to Genesis, Abraham, Moses, and finally Jesus. This was our entire salvation history. But given how my own beliefs have changed since then, where do I go now with my own children so that they can feel the magic and the power of their own story? Where do I go to light a great fire in the darkness that represents the Big Bang, or the first life on Earth, or the first time that human beings appeared in Africa? This is our sacred story. To know it is to feel at home in the world, to feel like we belong here, to feel connected to everything around us. The word religion, after all, means to reconnect. To reconnect. It means to find happiness and meaning in our lives. I believe it has the power to comfort and inspire us, to give us strength in living, to help us love one another and grow our circle of compassion and empathy, to act with wisdom, and to just be excited to be here, to be a part of this all. I believe that our UU religion can help us do that. Our openness and interest in incorporating new discoveries and current understandings of the world into our worship and teachings is important in this regard, to help develop a kind of spiritual vocabulary for the many intellectual things that we are all learning, and help orient our hearts and our actions to them. To create rituals, liturgies, and spiritual practices that celebrate what we know to be true, and to bring it alive in our imaginations. In one of her meditations, the Reverend Victoria Safford, as we just heard, asks us, what if there were a universe, a cosmos, that began in shining blackness out of nothing, out of fire, out of a single silent breath, and into it came billions and billions of stars and red-winged blackbirds, sperm whales, crocuses, onions out of soil, Mount Everest, the mind and the mind's eye. If such a universe existed and you noticed it, what would you do? What song would come out of your mouth? What prayer? What praises? What sacred offering? What whirling dance? What religion and what reverential gesture would you make to greet that world every single day that you are in it? Statistics show that church going is on the decline in the West. Maybe this is because people are finding a sense of community in places like Facebook and Zoom instead. And or maybe it is a problem of content. Maybe people feel that the reality of the world that they are living in is not reflected in the church they attend each Sunday. And in closing, I'd like to say, Carl Sagan said that a religion, old or new, that stressed the magnificence of the universe as revealed by modern science might be able to draw forth reserves of reverence and awe hardly tapped by conventional faiths. Sooner or later, such a religion will emerge. Amen. Thank you.
One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Therefore, generosity is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our well-being. Our spiritual practice also extends to the greater community. There is also a box in the foyer for donations of food to the local pantry. Thank you all for your ongoing generosity. And our collection will now be received, and we'll have a song.
I didn't really want to touch this instrument today, but you asked me to play a little something for this, so
Cool.
go ahead.
There's always something here. It's been nice to be with you today. May we go forth into the world knowing our deep connection to all things in space and time. Let's close with Blue Boat Home. And do we have the number? 1064, thank you. Number 1064 in the teal hymnals. And even though I have to remain seated, if you'd like to stand as you are able for this one. Low below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the stars, over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat. I give thanks to the waves upholding me in the